You're listening to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation.
Hello, this is Aaron the King Khalid, future Cage Warriors welterweight champion. If you're into podcasts that talk about MMA and general MMA chit-chat, then A.C.E Podcast Nation is the one for you. Go on to YouTube, like and subscribe, and every Wednesday they do a Danny Batten Fight Talk show, which breaks down the cards previously to that week and future matchups following that fight show. So yeah, it's a great podcast. Like I said, like, subscribe and give it a listen.
Champion, welcome, Danny Batten. Number one. You win.
Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. And we're back again for another episode. This is episode number 58. We're going to be talking about UFC, which is back. So we were talking about last night's masterclass from Max Holloway, among other things. Some great fights, some good knockouts and stuff. Lots to talk about. We'll have a bit of a talk about news and stuff. But as always, you can watch the video version of this show and all the other series we do. YouTube.com/ACE Podcast Nation. Give it a subscribe, click the bell. It's the most direct way to support us at the moment. And of course, you can get the audio version at all the usual podcast and radio platforms. But with no further ado, as always, joined by former Cage Warriors champion and legend of the UK MMA scene is Mr. Daniel Batten. How goes it, my friend?
You're right, sir. Jack. I'm getting all muddled up here. Si and Jack, thanks for coming on. Yeah, all good. What a UFC! What a UFC!
Glad it's back, mate. Glad it's back. And of course, we have our first guest of the year, which I'm very happy to say. It's a new face as well. It is Jack the Stone Mason. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on, Si and Danny.
It's all good, mate. It's good. We've been scouring the place for new guests because you've had a few guys who've been on a couple of times and stuff, and I wanted to get some new faces on to have a chat to. So we're going to have a chat to you about your career and what you're up to now and stuff like that. But before we do that, we're going to have a little chat about some of the latest MMA news and some of the fights which have been announced. But the one place I want to start is, I don't know if you saw it, but Dana White did an interview last night during during the event, and basically said he met with Khabib on Friday night, and because he was worried that Khabib had retired out of a kind of an emotional thing because of what had happened with his father and stuff like that, and Khabib's reply was he's going to be watching the main event and the co-main event of next Saturday's fights, and he'll see what he fancies after that. He doesn't want to hold up the title and the division, which to me, that sounded very much like he probably will fight later this year. However, in my opinion, I don't think he will fight Conor McGregor. I think he would fight Dustin Poirier if Dustin Poirier beats McGregor, and I think he would also fight who's in the co-main, Dan? Is it it's Dan Hooker and someone else?
The guy from Bellator, isn't it? Is he fighting him?
Mike Chandler.
Chandler, yeah.
I'd be very interested to see how that goes because I know you're a big fan, Dan, of Mr. Chandler. But Dan Hooker's a difficult fight for him.
Man, not easy. Just stylistically, it don't match up really great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Chandler can beat anyone on his day, but he's another guy that's probably slightly going over the hilt regards being at his absolute
sure.
peak. I still think he's super dangerous for anyone to fight. But Dan Hooker's just got that range. He's got that natural size, height advantage, and he fights outwardly as well. He'll fight on the outer fringes of the cage and just stay disengaging. That could pose a problem for someone like Chandler. It's going to be interesting, certainly.
What do you make of Khabib's comments then? Because like we've talked at length about Conor McGregor and what's next for him this year. Another thing which Dana White said last night is that he thinks he's expecting Conor to fight 3 times this year. I think he'll only fight twice in the UFC because I think he'll probably fight Manny Pacquiao at some point as well. But it'd be interesting. Like, Jack, who would you like if Khabib does fight again and he doesn't just vacate the title? Who would you like to see him fight next?
GSP. That's the only fight I've wanted to see for a long time.
Absolutely agree with that.
I think that's the one fight for me. Like, because Khabib's been so dominant and because of the way he fights, like, I don't find his fights really enjoyable to watch, if you get what I mean. Like that Holloway fight last night was, even though it was remarkably one-sided, I couldn't take my eyes off it. Whereas Khabib fights, I don't always have that feeling. Don't get me wrong, he is, he's one of the greatest ever. But the GSP fight interests me because it's very, it's quite an even matchup, Dan, isn't it? Like, stylistically. And I think GSP could ask him some questions, perhaps, which he hasn't been asked before.
Yeah, I think more of the. Sorry, Jack. Just personally, I just think more than anything else. I just think no one's had the answers for the questions that Khabib brings to the table. But GSP is an absolute strategist. He's great at finding a way of out wrestling a better wrestler and out striking a better striker, and out maneuvering a jiu-jitsu guy when predominantly he should be outmaneuvered in return. But because he uses the aspect of MMA, he finds a way to win in all areas. And so he's an absolute strategist. And Khabib has never fought anyone who's a strategist in my mind. And we've always seen someone that's got a very obvious style, and Khabib's just overrun him with his style. But we got someone that can adapt on the job and also put up a really good game plan. And he's still absolutely amazing shape. Whenever you see footages of him and interviews, this guy's motivated to stay in shape and training. It's not like he's stopped fighting, stopped training. He's still up there. That's one that would really, really interest me. I don't see the point of him fighting Poirier or McGregor again. Just don't interest me.
The problem I've got with it is I don't really like if GSP wins that title. Say GSP was to beat him, he's not going to defend the title. So you get in the same position, I think it was when he fought Bisping, whereby he wins and then the title gets held up for a couple of months and then he just drops it. That's my only kind of issue with it. But Jack, like Danny's talked at length over the 50-odd shows we've done about GSP and the way he strategizes for fights and the game plans he came up with for different fighters. Do you think he could find a way to beat Khabib?
Yeah, that's what I want to see. As Danny said, he's a master tactician. In his training camps, he leaves no stone unturned, and he would just go in there with a strategy and the skill set to pose Khabib some problems. And there hasn't been anyone that Khabib has fought that's been able to do that. As Danny said, in terms of it, no one's gone in there with a proper strategy to beat him. No one's tried to take him down and really, people have tried to stop his takedowns, but they haven't really tried to stop them with a decent strategy. Building in the MMA aspects, the striking and the footwork and all those types of things to stop him from taking him down. So yeah, I really think GSP is the only fight, and also I couldn't care less if GSP walked away after that fight and held up the division, or I just want to see the fight.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand that fully. The other name, apart from the 4 in the 2 fights next week, which Khabib mentioned, was Charles Oliveira. He said he found that fight really interesting, which I found I found that myself quite interesting because that wasn't a fight that I'd necessarily thought of for Khabib. Dan, what would you make of that if they pitted him against Khabib?
Yeah, I mean, Charles obviously performed amazingly just recently, but I don't want to, overstretch myself by saying he's got a chance against Khabib just because he beat Ferguson the way he did. Because to me, Ferguson just, I don't know, he's just lost his stride. He's lost his stride. So, maybe that was partly to do with why he looked so good, but not to take anything away from Charles. I think Charles is an amazing athlete and definitely on the increment regards his performance building and his status in the division. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to stick with the fact that really my main interest is seeing him against someone like GSP. Can't get that one out my head. Yeah, and that's just it. I'll stand by that.
Yeah, I think Oliveira's looked better since he's gone back to lightweight in 2017. He's just looked a bit more comfortable and kind of taken on and really gone and done some special stuff over the last year or two. They announced where's it gone? And they announced some more fights. Stipe versus who was it? Can't remember off the top of my head. They announced the Stipe fight, which was one of the things they announced. But I wanted to ask you guys both really, like obviously Holloway took all the plaudits last night, and rightly so, because for me that was one of the great MMA performances, particularly striking performances. It was just unbelievable. But Jack, who stood out for you, or like just generally on that card last night, other than Holloway?
I think I don't think really. I mean, there were some fantastic fights. The knockout over Ponzinibbio was brilliant. There's some brilliant finishes, but I think they were all overshadowed by Max's performance and his his personality in the fight. And I think the only thing I really think of about last night's fights, they were all brilliant. The heavyweight fight was back and forth, but they were all fantastic. But I just think Max just took over the show really in that final bout.
It was very special performance. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou is set for UFC 260 in March. Danny, what do you make of that fight? Because Ngannou's looked a bit refreshed of late, but obviously the main criticisms around him is probably outside of his striking. He sometimes struggles a little bit.
Yeah, you just got to wonder whether if you don't do something in the first 2 rounds, it's always going to go Stipe's way. I just think Stipe's a little bit too experienced and a little bit too complete for Ngannou. But you can't write Ngannou off. I mean, he'll put you away with the slightest slip up. He really will. And, let's not take away from the fact that he's trying to round off his game more. And, each month that goes by, there's no doubt that he'll be, becoming more of a complete MMA fighter. And, that's a scary prospect to see someone with those kind of, physical credentials. So, yeah, we can't write him off. It doesn't overly excite me, but, I'm sure it throws some interests when that bout happens.
I mean, the thing is, with the heavyweights, especially with someone like Francis Ngannou, like, on his day, it doesn't matter who he's fighting. If he catches someone clean, they're going to go down. And I think if he was to be able to find a way to beat Stipe Miocic, that's a massive win for him. And I think that really. Do you think if he was to beat Stipe, he's got to have a title shot, surely? Would you say, John?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's the next fight for him.
Yeah.
There's Stipe's like the guy, isn't he? So it's be interesting for sure. What do you make of that fight, Jack?
Isn't Stipe the champ?
Yeah, he is.
He?
Yeah, I think. I think he's just getting a little muddled up there, but.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't. I'm not overly enthusiastic about the fight. We've already seen it before. Stipe took him over. I think it was 5 rounds, but after Ngannou sort of blew his load in the first couple, Stipe just repeatedly kept taking him down and beating him up down there. And I think the same is going to happen. Obviously, if Stipe lands a single shot, it could be a different story. But it's a very tough game plan for Stipe to keep up for 5 rounds, but he has done it already, and I think it's probably going to go the same way. But yeah, Ngannou's power is insane. So one shot could change that fight.
Absolutely. The last bit of kind of, I guess, news I wanted to touch on, I wanted to get Jack's opinion on. We're going to see friend of the show, Mason Jones, make his UFC debut on Wednesday. He's fighting Mike Davis. Are you familiar with Mason, Jack?
Yeah. Yeah, so like some of my guys have fought him before, and obviously I know Mason a lot from the Cage Warriors events, and I actually speak to him pretty regularly on WhatsApp and stuff. But yeah, I think I'm pretty excited for his fight. He definitely deserves to be there. He's one of those guys that, especially in the Cage Warriors roster, has worked his way up. He's fought everyone. He's done that. He stepped up to welterweight to fight at a higher weight and beat another top guy there. He's never shied away from a fight, done it the hard way, and he's earned his UFC shot. So there's nowadays it's actually quite rare that the guys have done it the proper way, and I feel like Mason Jones has.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really, really excited to see how he goes in that fight. Do you think he'll pick up the victory, Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly likely. I think highly likely. He's on absolute roll, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got to be full of confidence as well, isn't he? I'm not massively familiar with his opponent, Mike Davis, but I would have. You just never know, do you? I guess with these fighters who coming in, just trying to have a look there at Mike Davis's record. He seems relatively new. Obviously, he's 8-2, but I don't know if that's in the UFC or overall. No, it looks like it's in the UFC. So his last fight, he fought Gifford and won. He lost to Gilbert Burns previous to that. So yeah, it looks like he's had 2 fights in the UFC. He lost 1 and won 1. But, Gilbert, no shame in losing to Gilbert Burns, I don't think. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think Mason's really well rounded. He's going to do really well in the UFC. He's not really got any glaring holes in his game. He's got a very good jiu-jitsu game. He's got excellent wrestling, and his striking is really good. So, and also he's a very tough guy, and he's got no quit in him. So, I think he's going to do well. He's got all the ingredients to make a really good run at his career in the UFC.
Yeah, I think so. Are you looking forward to that one, Dan?
Yeah, I'm really going to be watching this guy's career with interest. Obviously we've rubbed shoulders with him on here and got to know him a little bit better. And he's a real good guy, someone that really deserves it. He fights like he's like a street fighter. The way he fights, he just tucks in. There's no holding him back. He just gets right in there. But when you talk to him, he's quite analytical with his approach to MMA. He's a true martial artist in every sense of the word. So I've got a lot of faith that this guy's going to have a glorious career. Really do. And so young as well. I mean, what is he? He's pretty young, isn't he? But they all are now. Look how young some of these British athletes and the Welsh athletes that have gone over there. They've got out there at such young ages. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be as a Welshman myself, I'm going to be fascinated to see how Mason and Jack Shaw do this year in the UFC. They both seem poised to really step it up to another level. So I'm genuinely really excited by it. But there's it's not just the Welsh guys. There's a whole host of talent which has either just gone into the UFC or already in the UFC, or also just at the top of Cage Warriors, almost waiting to go into UFC, including our guest for next week, which is going to be an interesting one. Jack, obviously you fought all over, including Cage Warriors. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your career and stuff, and some of your memories of that. But what are you up to at the moment?
I'm just obviously I work in my full-time job as well, but I run sort of BKK Fighters. We've got quite a few guys, guys and girls that are fighting. This last year has been a bit slower, but still managed to get get quite a few guys out. I also obviously I've coached Arnold Allen since he was a young boy, and Corey McKenna as well, and we've just Arnold's been out in Montreal now back and forth for about 5 years since he got into the UFC, and Corey has moved out to Sacramento earlier this year, straight after we flew out for her Dana White Contender Series fight, and then she stayed out in California. We got her a visa prior to that, so she's living out there permanently for, I think she's got a 5-year visa, and she got into the UFC after that performance, and she had her debut in November, and I went and spent a bit of time out in Sacramento with her before the fight, so that was good, and good to see what they're doing out there. But yeah, so I'm just focusing on coaching, and loving it really. It's definitely a passion of mine. I definitely enjoy it more than fighting, and it's great to see these guys doing so well.
Well, you mentioned Corey McKenna there. I really am interested to see how her career goes. She made a good debut in the UFC. Obviously, the first Welsh woman to fall in the UFC as well.
Yeah.
But she's looked mightily impressive previous to that. Like, how good is she, and how far do you think she can go in the UFC?
She's incredible. She's got she's really well rounded. Obviously, as Danny was saying, all these young kids that they've been learning MMA since they were young. Like Corey walked into the gym at 13, and she's been doing MMA since then. She wasn't like, didn't do whatever it is, jiu-jitsu or a different sport. It was just MMA from 13. So while she's only 20 now, she's in the UFC. She's already had a 7-year career, and she was competing, competitively in Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, etc. Since she was 13. So she's really experienced. I think she has got the potential to be a champ. It's a very tough division, probably the toughest women's division, I think. But yeah, as long as she keeps improving the way she has been, there's no reason why she shouldn't. Then I definitely think she can be the champ in the future.
Yeah, Jack, just a little bit of a coaching question to put to you, just of your opinion. If you was going to take on a fighter that had a background in martial arts, and they wanted therefore to go over to full-on MMA, would you rather them be at like a world-class level in their jiu-jitsu, or like a world-class level wrestler, world-class level striker? If you was going to pick any of the formats that you would prefer to build upon, what sort of area would you think?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I think I always do think that wrestling is extremely important because obviously you can dictate where the fight's going to go. You could be the best striker in the world, but if you can't stop a takedown, then it's going to be useless. And likewise with jiu-jitsu, if you could have unbelievable jiu-jitsu, but if you can't get someone to the ground, then you can't use it. So I'd say that's probably one of the most preferable bases. But that being said, especially nowadays, the striking is definitely very predominant. So, you can always, with hard work, you can always build a decent takedown defense. So guys can do really well if they're decent strikers and they can stop a takedown. So in today's sort of, MMA. Yeah. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I would initially steer towards the wrestling for the exact same reasons which you mentioned. Really, is the fact that you can strategize to either steer it to the ground or to wherever the other person is weak in terms of who they're up against. And obviously, if they're a strong striker, you'll be able to get it to the ground and so on. And I think obviously with the wrestling, it doesn't take much to teach them some of the principles about being up against a fence. Okay, that's not straight one-on-one wrestling, but the fence work itself has become quite something of importance in terms of just getting out of the danger of strikes, but also not having to go down to the floor, the danger of a good submission guy. You can literally just wrestle screw them up against the fence and take the fight there. But yeah, I think it's kind of like yeah, it's kind of like a stick in the spokes of a rotating wheel, isn't it? Wrestling,
Yeah.
you can screw up a jiu-jitsu guy and also screw up a good striker. So yeah, pretty much be in agreement. But it's interesting how, when I put this question to different coaches or different students and what have you, they will all come up with different reasons why. I just want to get your perspective on it. I was looking at your fight record earlier. I know you've had a long career, but you really have, racked up a hell of a lot of fights over your course of your career. Did you have a set date or set fight that you knew you was going to have as your last fight, or how did it work out?
No, just I've just racked up so many injuries. Like I've got no ligaments in my knees or meniscus in my right knee. So stuff like that. In my last 3 fights, I got some pretty bad injuries. I got my front teeth knocked out, which I had to have implants put in, which took about 18 months recovery. And then I got against Hack and Foss, I got the big cut above my eyebrow. I had some big injuries, and I just thought, why am I doing this any longer? Maybe I'm losing a step. Because before, I think all of my last 3 fights would have fought Marvin Vettori, Jason Radcliffe, and Hack and Foss. All of the fights I think I lost were from knees. So I got my teeth knocked out with a knee, got cut with a knee, and and that was it really. So I just thought there's I don't need to be carrying on, and coaching was really my passion, and that was it really. So
yeah. And for me, coaching has been an amazing substitute for getting in there and doing it myself. I don't look back, have no desires to wish I was young again to do it all again. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm really happy with what I've done. But when I put it to bed, it was to bed for good. And it looks like that you pretty much think the same way. I mean, coaching is just a fantastic thing. You get to live through it without the pain.
Yeah, that's it. Like I struggle to walk down the stairs in the morning. I have to walk down backwards and things like that. And I just think there's no way. Like I know how good these young guys are. There's no way I can compete with those people, those fighters. But I've learned so much through my career. I've made so many mistakes that I can help guide these young fighters through their careers and hopefully not let them make some mistakes I did.
Yeah.
It's difficult, isn't it? Like, it's interesting listening to you two guys. Like, obviously, 2 ex-fighters who retired and seem happy with the decision and no desires or things to go back on it. You don't always see that with fighters, both MMA and boxing. Like, when the fighters retire, they struggle with it, and they end up coming back a year later, or they come back in a few years past their prime, and it's never quite the same. And that's common for a lot of fighters to go through. So I think it's interesting, and it sounds as if coaching has helped both of you with that, in terms of finding a way to still be involved in MMA and pass on your knowledge and your technical abilities and things like that, but just without the pain. Jack, you mentioned, just quickly going back to Corey McKenna, I was going to say, like, she's so young, like 2021. That is so young, and like there's a lot of time to get things right, isn't it? And if not just for Corey, but for any fighter, when you're that young and you're fighting in the biggest promotion in the world, if things don't go to plan straight away, as long as you've got like a good team around you and good people advising you, and you want to keep improving, there's plenty of time to make things right. And I think that's what fascinates me a bit about all the British talent coming through at the moment, is a lot of them are very young. They're like early to mid 20s, and they're just preparing to basically take on the world almost. A lot of them, and I'd probably say more than a handful of them seem as if they're ready to really push on to that next level, whether it's someone like a Jack Shaw or a Mason Jones or a Corey McKenna. Is there anyone within Cage Warriors or on the European scene or UK scene or from your own gym where you're kind of really excited by the talent you can see, where they might not necessarily be at the top now, but you could see them maybe pushing on, someone we should look out for in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's tons. I'd say one of Danny's guys, Georgian Vucenic. He's really making a name for himself. He had a fantastic performance against Paul Hughes, who was also another huge prospect on the Cage Warriors roster, and he's fighting for the title now. So he's probably the guy that I think, they're one of the next big British stars. I think, if he can, especially if he can get past, not, it doesn't matter if he does or he doesn't, but I still think it's big things that happen for him. But if he gets past Morgan Charrier, then I think the world is always, and things are going to escalate pretty quickly for him. But the thing I was really impressed with him was because my guy Steve Aimable fought against him. It was a close fight, but we went in there with one of the things that I saw with Jordan, and it's something that Qatar probably could have sort of, could have used last night, but we knew Jordan's game plan was probably going to want to strike with Steve, and we had some parts of the game plan that worked really well in the first round. Jordan adjusted after the first round and came back out, changed his attacks, and he managed to get the decision. And just having that type of mindset to be able to change up the game plan mid-fight is just one of those things that is very difficult to teach a fighter. They have to, a lot of the time they just sort of have to have that ability, and he does. And I think with the skill set he's got, the look he's got, I think the and the mindset he's got, I think the world is his oyster, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a massive prospect. He's gone very, very far, very quick.
Yeah.
Danny, obviously you've been working with Jordan. Is he looking forward to his title fight in a few weeks?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is a big opportunity. I talk about trying to have goals that I want to set for myself as a coach, and I wanted to create, first of all, amateur champions. I've done that numerous times. Then I wanted to create a legit pro. When I say legit pro, on a big show, we did that with Modestus. But then another one is to get one of my lads to win the former title that I had, which is the featherweight Cage Warriors title, and Jordan's fighting for that one now. So I feel pretty confident that's going to be another notch done, another completion of the task that I've got at hand as a coach to set my goals. And Jordan's a good lad, and he's got a really good attitude. So he's one of those students that respond to what you say. If he ever has a disagreement with perhaps a direction I want to go in, it's something that we get discussed, although initially we're always on the same page. He's just got a great work ethic, and it just makes things easy. So many times with these youngsters, you get different hiccups with their home life that interferes with their training, and it can be a headache. But with Jordan, it's been pretty plain sailing. I remember I say if it's an issue at all, he kept coming to our gym, and then he would come get beat up, and then he would go floating around other gyms, and he would appear again sort of 8 months later, stay for another month, and then vanish again. And I sort of I don't want to say humiliated him, but I kind of told him off a little bit. I said, Jordan, what the hell are you doing, man? You've got so much talent, but you've got nowhere to call your home. I know you like to go from gym to gym. I said, make one place your home. I said, I don't care who you represent, what team you fight for. I said, give us a chance to sort of consolidate some of your skill sets and go and train elsewhere. Go and represent who you want, but just give me a chance to see you not waste your young talent, because I think you've got something. And he took it on board, and he signed up. A month later, he was there for good. And he does go training other places, which I get all my students. So I encourage my students. So I'm not an insecure coach by any way. Which I was doing a podcast. I got invited on to James Doolan's podcast, and we was talking about similar things. Really, how that I'm not insecure for people to go and train elsewhere. If they find out some new things that I haven't been able to teach them, that's not only a great thing. Bring it back home. Let's all learn and evolve. And likewise, we're a very open, loose club. really representing a team. Okay, I get all that, but really, I'm in it because they become my friends and I care about their progress. Fighting for the team, okay, that's just just something you got to do as part of what makes the game. But I don't even like this term coach. I'm just a student that's got more experience than these other younger students, and I like to share it. But I'm in it because I want to see them progress as people. So sorry.
You boss. You make them call you
No,
boss
that's no. I would never do that. Honestly, I find that an ugly thing. I really do.
Yeah, no. Jack, just before, I know you've got to shoot off at 9, so I just wanted to kind of chat a bit about your career. Like, you mentioned the injuries and stuff, and it did seem as if maybe towards the end of your fighting career, you were struggling a little bit with the injuries that you were picking up. Like, tell us some of the more positive memories from your fighting career.
Just from traveling the world, meeting all the people that I did. We've got lifelong friends from MMA, and it's just been fantastic. It's opened so many doors for me in both my just my day-to-day job and just life experience. It's been amazing. Headlining. I would never have gone to Al Fashira in the UAE, but headlining an event, a Cage Warriors event over there, and then there's just so many different memories. But that is pretty much the summation. I've had a great career. I didn't necessarily achieve some of the things that I set out to, but don't really look back on that. I just really have enjoyed it, and have met just some fantastic people and met some, had some experiences that I would never would have done if I hadn't been involved.
Go on, Dan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, out of all the many fights that you have, because my goodness, you really have racked them up. Is there any particular fight that you would want someone to look at if they were showing interest in your career, and you say, hey, go and have a look at that fight that really showed you at your peak level, where you think you was at your best and you feel that you gave your best performance?
I think, potentially. So I think the fight I had against Colin Reuter, who was training at Team Alpha Male at the time, is the first guy that I fought that was from a legitimate super camp. So at the time he was training out of Team Alpha Male. They were big gym at the time, still are obviously. And I was main eventing the Cage Warriors. So I really put everything into that fight, and from a game plan and game plan execution point of view, I was really happy with that. The guy had just come off a big knockout that went completely viral. Obviously, I was worried about his right hand, and I nullified that and put on a good performance. And then the other one, so was Bruno Cavallo as well. And this is one of the Bruno Cavallo back in the day. He was a light heavyweight Brazilian guy that was training in Scandinavia, but he was one of the top heavyweights in Europe at the time. And I kept having shows all over trying to match me with him, and I kept saying no because I trained with August Wallen out in Sweden. He advised me to get. He'd done some training with me. He advised me against it. So for it was about 3 to 5 years, I think I just kept getting these offers. Then he eventually signed to Cage Warriors, and he went down from being a light heavyweight. I think he came off the steroids maybe, and he went down from light heavyweight to welterweight. He was still a huge guy at the time, and he was the only guy that I've ever had a bit of bad blood or beef with, because he this was I was matched with him on the Liverpool show. So we'd never spoken before at all. I was matched with him on a Liverpool show, Cage Warriors event at the Liverpool Echo, and he pulled out the week previous. because I think he had to get a new passport or something and didn't want to do it or something like that. I don't know what the thing was, but anyway, Ian Dean said to me, he pulled out, do you still want to fight? I was like, yeah, I still want to fight. He said, I can get you Ali Arish, and Ali Arish was ranked, I don't know, 3 at the time. I think he had an 18-1 record. And I said, okay, cool. Like 5 days notice, it's massive change of opponent. But I still wanted to fight, so I did the fight. And on fight day, I get a tweet from Bruno Cavallo saying, why didn't you want to fight me? I'm like, what are you going on about? And I'm fighting. I'm here. And he was the one that didn't show up. So then we had this bit of beef, and
Right.
I was super, like, eventually when we got rematched, I was super motivated, and I probably had the best camp I've ever had, the best everything went perfect. Still, it was a really tough fight, but I won the decision in the end. And yeah, I think in the first round, I remember he dropped me, and I was like, no way am I going to get finished here. And yeah, and I fought back, and I got the decision, and I felt like that performance was one, especially for me, like just from all the history in there, is one of the performances I was most happy with and most proud of anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like winning a fight where you've got a little bit of beef that produces that passion. I mean,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you say, you got knocked down in that first round, and maybe in a less motivated fight that might have been a different case. But the fact that you had it in your head, like, I can't lose to this guy, it gives you that drive to stay in there and and pull off the win.
Absolutely.
And that was actually going to be one of my questions. Have you ever fought anyone professionally whereby, like, you've legitimately had a bit of a dislike? Because it's actually surprising how many fighters say they've never really fought, professionally and had like a legitimate sort of dislike for their opponent. A lot of them, say it's just it's a job or it's their career and they just fight as they fight. What about
one of the things about the sport, I was just going to say, one of the things about the sport is that MMA really humbles you, and you realise that it doesn't matter what people look like or how big they are, whatever. There are some exceptionally tough guys out there, and you'd be mad to underestimate anyone, really, just in all walks of life. And I think it makes for better people. So there aren't that many dicks involved in the sport because everyone is so humble.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, you do still get them, but they're few and far between in the sport. I absolutely agree.
But then, say someone like I don't know, say Conor McGregor, who's got a lot to say for himself, can sometimes be quite disrespectful to opponents or to people. But actually, when it comes down to it, when he loses, he's very humble. He always takes it on the chin. He'll shake his opponent's hand and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I actually prefer about MMA to boxing is, I'd say 90% or 99% of the fighters, no matter what's going on in the build-up being said, what's going on in the fight, they will generally shake hands. They'll be very respectful. They'll shake hands with the coach and staff, because it's at its core, it's about martial arts, which is obviously something which over hundreds of years has been drilled into various different martial arts about respect and things like this. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about MMA over boxing, because that's not always the case with boxing. I'm not going on another boxing rant though, Dan, about the state of boxing at the moment. I forgot. I had a really good question for you, Jack, and I've completely forgotten it, which is a bit frustrating. It'll come back to me now. What about plans for the future, Jack? Have you got like one question we always get sent in by people is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? But it's difficult with the pandemic to make those sort of predictions.
Well, like similar to what Danny said earlier. So I've got like a book in front of me where I write down my goals every day, and obviously I have lots of coaching goals as well. So one of them is the same. I really, one of the goals is to have one of the fighters that I coach win the Cage Warriors title, because I feel like that's one of the most legitimate titles, outside the UFC. And you really have to be, really have to work for that title and beat the, sort of some of the best guys in Europe. But obviously I've also got, so Arnold Allen, been coaching for a long time, and he's in the top 10 now, for featherweight. We're really trying to get him matched up. He's had a tough time with opponents pulling out over the last year. Really want to get him matched up this year and make a run for that title. After watching that fight last night, Max Holloway looked brilliant, but the level Arnold is at now, I think the skill set matches up really well. So obviously got that. That's another goal of is to win a UFC title, and I think Arnold is going to do that. Corey, she's probably going to be fighting at the end of this year. I think in her UFC debut in November, she broke her ankle and tore some ligaments in her, tore them right off in her ankle as well. So they've had to be repaired. So she's got quite a long recovery for that. So she's not going to be back competing, I don't think, till the second half of the year. And the rest of it, I've got lots of other guys coming through BKK and just want to make sure that they get fights this year, get back active, and start really racking up those wins and developing as good fighters, really.
And Jack, you talk highly of the female fighters you got as well as the male fighters that you have. What you thinking about the attention the female fighters are getting today in UFC? Because some people were a bit squeamish about the idea of attractive ladies banging it out with each other and stuff. Is this something that turns you off, or you're all for it?
When Corey was growing up, we always used to take the mick out of her and say, all you got to do is to be, a UFC champion is put your hand up, and say I want to fight, because you would, it was such a shallow division at the time, and anyone that wanted to fight could really get in there. But nowadays, Jesus, the girls are just as dedicated as the men. They fight hard a lot of the time. They fight harder than the men. They just got a really vicious streak about them. And there is a big gap. So I would still say that the divisions are a little bit more shallow. Some of the low. One example was one of the fights last night. I can't remember the name, but two of the girls that were on the prelims, the level was not that great. I think it was a Brazilian girl and a Canadian girl, but the level was not that great. But then at the topper end of the division, the top 10, top 15, the females are unbelievable. The skill set is really high, and I really love watching the women fight, the women's fight. Joanna and Weili Zhang fight last year was probably fight of the year, I think.
It's one of the best fights I've ever
seen,
male or female. I still stand by that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just in terms of the women, I think they're just as good. Sometimes the fights can be even better.
Mm.
Yeah, we've been treated to some phenomenal females.
Yeah. Do you think as well? It seems the women seem to have such incredible stand-up wars, and don't get me wrong, we see this with the guys, but with the guys, so often we see one guy, put closure to the fight with a knockout. With the women, you're not seeing as many knockouts. Maybe because they're not so powerfully set up top. Do you think sometimes this is what makes for a better spectacle? The fact that they can't knock each other out so easily, and you're getting these huge exchanges of striking.
Yeah, absolutely. And they just don't back down. When you got these really really highly skilled, aggressive females, and as you say, sometimes the power isn't there, and they can't quite put each other away. But with one shot, then some of the fights just turn out, spectacular. but you are getting we are starting to see these women come into the divisions now that, you know, like Amanda Nunes and people that really can put those girls away as well.
Yeah, sure.
So I think we're going to see. I think we are going to start seeing more of it, just because the level is just going up. But yeah, I love watching the women. And when I was out in Sacramento with Corey, she trains at a gym called CSA.
Okay.
It's about an hour from Sacramento, and I'd say 90% of the fighters there are females. They've got a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
so they've got a lot of females in Bellator and the UFC. And Corey goes to sparring on a Saturday, and I turned up and it was just a mat full of women, and they're doing really big things out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well, just lastly on the women thing, is I think in the next 5 years, I do think we'll see a huge influx of female talent into the UFC and Cage Warriors and wherever else, because the girls who caught the bug as young kids watching Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm and people like that, and then have obviously now got the current era, I think they'll have all been inspired and taken it up, and they'll start coming through. Because obviously there was a point when Ronda Rousey was like one of the biggest stars, male or female, in the whole world, and I think that generation of fan and girls will come through in the next few years.
We've got so I run the Cage Warriors Academy Southeast as well, the event, and we've got so many girls that fight in the event. We've got we'll probably have at least 10 girl fights every card, and some of the talent coming through is unreal. We've got amateur talent, Chloe Cook, Riri Hudson. There's honestly we really focus on developing the female talent in the UK, and we also get lots of fights coming from Europe and Norway, etc. as well. But it's the talent is getting really good in the women's division, and you can on the analytics and stats on our YouTube channel, the female fights are the most watched fights by a huge margin.
Wow.
Like
We've
you've got some female amateur fights that have got like 200,000 views, and then some of the bigger stars, which you would think in the for the males, you know, they've got maybe 8,000 views. It's a huge difference in the margin, and you know, so sometimes there are a lot of creeps that watch women's MMA for different reasons, and Corey can tell you about lots of the DM gets, but yeah, he's definitely a big fan base.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I'd love to see, UFC. I've never been doing really good to promote female fighters, but I'd love to see them feature more as co-main and main events. I really would.
Yeah, I think they might this year actually, because there's a couple of big fights they can do, isn't there? With Zhang Weili and Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko, and there's some big names there who've been on fire, and the next sort of step is like those super fights for them. So I'm hopeful that at least that they'll, really put them up there in the main event alongside. Like it would have been, do you know what I mean? It'd be nice to see a big women's fight as the co-main with a Conor McGregor, for instance.
Yeah, I agree.
To really, really showcase them a bit more, isn't it? On those huge cards, as opposed to just the, just main event in like the TV cards.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Don't get me wrong. It's good that they're main event in the TV cards, but it'd be nice to see a main event those top cards. Okay, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us, mate. I know you've got to shoot.
I can. It's all right. I can stay. Actually, I just had a text. The guy that was supposed to be meeting with he's not. So if you want to,
better.
What we're going to do now, mate, is we're going to go through the UFC main card from last night and just talk about each fight.
Brilliant.
So
Cool.
excellent. Two professional analysts and me. So I give
And me.
the uneducated fans view, and then you two can give the technical breakdown that the people deserve. Overall thoughts, Dan, of your last night's UFC cards? It was great.
Brilliant. Yeah, really, really good.
Much.
You know, we got possibly what might be fight of the year already. With the main fight of the night, and we got treated to some nice knockouts as well. So yeah, a really good first UFC of the year. Really, really good.
Yeah, a lot of finishes, wasn't there?
Yeah.
What were your just overall thoughts of the card, Jack?
Yeah, I just thought it was brilliant. There's some brilliant knockouts. Great to see Condit and Matt Brown eventually do the fight. It was a pretty good fight as well. And obviously the main event, there was a masterpiece from Max Holloway.
So yeah, that was special. I think is probably the best way to describe it. It was really, really special. But we'll get there. You mentioned, Dan, there was a lot of knockouts. There wasn't. Did any of the main cards go to a decision? Did it? Or there was one?
Just one. That's it.
Well, Condit, Matt Brown, and then Holloway.
Condit, of course.
Holloway. Holloway was so one-sided in some ways. I forgot that it went to a decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so special. But we opened up the main card with Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic, with Soriano picking up the win via TKO, 4 minutes 48 to the first round. Danny, what did you make of this one?
Dusko, he fights with his hands down, and he kept leaning back, didn't he? And we've seen him get away with this time and time again. But you just wondered when his luck was going to run out. And the thing is with Soriano, he was punching a little bit short, wasn't he? He was looping some of his shots in, and he was just coming up short with the fact that Dusko was leaning back. But he made the adjustments and started punching more down the centre line and stretching out his shots just that little bit more and started to get the connections. Now that some of them hit really horribly. They're really horrible. I do think that maybe that leaning back kind of saved him from being knocked out from the first sort of impact. But he was just never given enough space. He kept trying to do the right thing, trying to get it to the ground. But yeah, Soriano just kept calling him back up to the feet where he knew he had him hurt. And it happened just early enough in the round for him to keep pursuing. And he kept on chasing him down. And yeah, eventually just took too many hits and it was curtains for Dusko. But Dusko's definitely got to change his striking format in terms of the way he holds his guard. He can't get away with that style. He's just not quite sharp enough to do it at the higher end. He's going to keep coming up short, but he's been getting away with it for considerable time now. But yeah, lessons learned for him. Let's hope that he does make the adjustments for future fights.
Yeah, I think he trusts his head movement, doesn't he, to evade punches a lot.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So
I mean, there's times.
Soriano, it almost felt like he was playing right into Soriano's hands.
It almost, yeah. It was a dangerous game that he was playing, but don't get me wrong. There are times when you have to lean out of shots. If you get caught off balance, you're kind of going to have to lean because as your balance goes when you're throwing your shots, your head breaks body line and you have to sort of drop your arms lower to regain your balance, sort of thing. But so there's times when the head movement alone is going to be your saving grace, but you definitely shouldn't be using it as your bread and butter. Defensively, because you're going to come unstuck. I mean, we saw what happened to Anderson Silva when he started goading opponents with it, where he got overconfident. So whether that's a little bit of what was happening here, not so much that he was goading, but maybe got overconfidence with this type of defense, and it might be a reflection of how he trains and who he trains with. I'm not too versed on who his training partners are, but maybe he's getting away with this, sparring with people that perhaps haven't got the pedigree and striking to show him up for it. But like I say, lessons learned. Let's hope he makes the adjustments for future fights, because if he wants to stay relevant, you've got to have every part of your standing game on point. You really have.
Yeah, I think as well, like, it's a big win for Soriano. Thought he looked real sharp. Be interesting where he goes next. Jack, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, just pretty much what Danny said, and I think Soriano's had his number, and it's sort of just showcased the blueprint to beat Todorovic. Is that how you say it?
I think so.
And how to beat him, and I think other people will follow that strategy going forward unless he changes things up.
Yeah, 100%. The next fight I found really interesting because Joaquin Buckley, or Joaquin Buckley, I'm not sure how you say his first name, has been quite vocal this week about how he was going to do this, that, and the other, and he said he felt a bit disrespected. He came in to fight Alicio de Chirico, and it did not go to plan for him. He was knocked out after 2 minutes 12 of the first round. Some people I saw on social media calling it the upset of the last 12 months, but I'm not sure about that, but it was certainly an upset. Jack, what did you make of this second fight?
It was short and sweet, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It was a beautiful head kick. And he set it up, and it meant a lot. It definitely meant a lot to Alicio. He, you could see he was almost in tears as the fight was called off. Beautiful head kick, and
were you surprised with how it went? Like, did you expect Buckley to pick up the win here?
I'm not. I'm not 100. I'm not that sure. I haven't followed his career that much really. I know I saw his big KO last year, but I thought maybe the UFC are trying to give him a win because Alicio's sort of he's fallen short a couple of times in the UFC, but yeah. He came in with an excellent game plan and landed that head kick beautifully.
It was very nice. What about you, Dan? Do you like this one?
Yeah, I did. Buckley's definitely got talent and definitely got dynamite in his hands. So, I just think he was trying to chase it down, but I think he was so hell bent on what he was wanting to do to Alessio, he kind of slipped up on what was being done in return. So I think they had opposite stances, didn't they? Which opens up to that body shot that Alessio threw with the leg kick, with the kick from his leg to the body and to the leg. And of course, this one went upstairs, and I think that's really what caught him out. But it looked like Buckley was, like I say, so hell bent on throwing those power shots. If you have a look at the way that he got shin kicked to the head, he was squatting really low, like almost looking to throw and wind up punches like Mike Tyson does. Mike Tyson likes to drop down even lower and even shorter and explode upwards as he throws. It looked like he was just preparing to do that. But of course, to do something like that, you're coiling like a spring. It's kind of quite an obvious movement. And so I think it was quite an easy transition from kicking to midsection up to kicking high, because it actually wasn't high in location to his leg height throwing the kick because he is squatted so damn low. And I think that's partly what allowed him to have enough power on that kick to knock him out. I think a head kick initially, when someone's more upright, you lose a little bit of the power you kick. The fact that Buckley was squatted so low and given away a good couple of inches in height anyway, it was almost a midsection level kick for the kicker. And so it must have generated so much force. And indeed, you saw it in the slow motion. He hit him right on the side of that skull. It ripped his neck sideways. I'm not surprised at all that it knocked him clean sparko. But I do think it was a bit of an upset. I think there was bigger plans for Buckley. I think it was expected that Buckley would win. But Alessio, he's back and relevant again. This was a great performance for him. You can't take it away. You've only got what you got in front of you at the end of the day. And it looked like he was prepping something up for that first round. He kept going low and kept going mid with that kick, and then he went upstairs. It's not super IQ intelligence to set up things like that, but they still work at the highest order, and it worked last night for him. Well done.
Indeed. And well, at least according to the bookies, this was the first of 2 upsets in a row. As I'm going to pronounce this poor man's name wrong. Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Ponzinibbio.
That's the one. Versus
We're bad at names. Makes me laugh.
Lee. Every time I get the names wrong, I do try though. Versus Lee, and Lee was a massive underdog. He was the biggest underdog of the night, and I thought, even before the fight, I thought, God, they're underrating, because I quite like Lee. I like the way he fights. I like the way he goes about his business. He always looks really sharp, and even in his last fight, he hadn't looked at his best, but he still won. And Santiago obviously had a long layoff, but is very good fighter. But Lee picked up the win via KO after just under 4.5 minutes in the first round. Danny, you go first on this one. What did you make of this?
Yeah, I just feel like Santiago, because he did have a bit of time out, like you say, and Lee's been, pretty active. He's quite a sharp fighter anyway. So I just think Santiago should have sat behind his jab. He's got a really good jab. I just think he should have stayed long for a little longer, and maybe just get that first round under his belt to shake off any potential rust, because I think that's what happened. I think he started throwing in the deep combinations. When I say deep combinations, trying to throw that deep cross, but the thing is, it missed, and he was a little bit sloppy on his retraction back from that slip shot that happened, and he got caught with the left hook again. There's no rocket science in striking terms for the setup to counter a missed cross and then throwing a left hook. It's classic pad work combination, but it just worked an absolute treat. I just feel like he threw it a little bit too early. I think he should have settled a little bit more, played a little bit long, stuck behind a lead leg kick, stuck behind the jab before going in with those cross hands. Just went in a bit too premature, and he paid the ultimate price. He slipped up pretty much once, and that put him away. But that's the level of UFC for you. But let's not take anything away from Lee. I think he's a fantastic fighter. He's someone that appears to just fall a little short as he's moving up those ranks, but maybe this time around he will go even further and maybe get a shot at that title. Who knows?
Yeah, I was watching Daniel Cormier talk about Lee before the fight, and he was saying that he's been away, he's been working really hard on improving certain aspects of his game, to the point where he almost sees himself as a new fighter, which is interesting, because he's always been he's a good fighter, but like you say, maybe when push comes to shove at the highest level, when those really top opponents come across, that's where he's maybe being found out a little bit. But I thought he was really impressive last night. I thought, considering he was such a big underdog with the bookies, I was surprised by that. I'm not necessarily surprised that Santiago was the favourite, just more surprised at how much the differential was in the in the betting. But there we go. Next up, we finally got Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. I think it's definitely 2 times it's been called off. I got a feeling that it might have even been through 3 times, but it's we finally got it, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was really good. I thought Carlos Condit was very impressive. Jack, what did you make of this and Carlos's performance?
I thought Carlos was just sort of one step ahead of Matt Brown in the whole fight, and I think Matt Brown made he had a strategy. I think he wanted to take Carlos down and sort of ground and pound him, especially when he found that he was sort of falling behind in sort of the striking exchanges. He obviously got the takedown in the first round, but he didn't really do much with it. Condit was doing a lot of damage off his back, and then after that first round, Matt Brown looked visibly fatigued, I thought, and Carlos Condit just sort of poured it on for the remaining 2 rounds, and I thought Matt Brown did have some moments, but I thought Condit was looking very comfortable. His long combos were lovely, finishing with the head kicks, and I just thought it was just a vintage Carlos Condit performance, to be honest. It was great to see him look so good.
Yeah, he looked back to the level that I think we've seen him perform at various points over the years, but he looked back to that level. Danny, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I was a little worried for Condit because when we were doing our predictions, this was one of the ones that I said felt that Condit would win, and I put it down to the fact that he is a little bit younger. Brown is now 40 years old. I think he's turned now. And, no matter how much you keep yourself in shape, when you're fighting right up at the highest level, it's got to have some kind of effect on your game. And I think we began to see it in that second round. Now, Matt Brown's initial strategy of taking the hips away from Condit, I don't think Condit's the stronger of the two. I do think Brown is the stronger physically. And he locked up those hips, got the takedown. It was all looking very, very good for him. But I absolutely agree with what Jack was saying. He, maybe because of this age, where you don't quite have that flair to make the most of these positions to do damage, because you've got to always take into your fuel tank into consideration. He just lacked a little sharpness of awareness of opportunities to throw down elbows, which I think we've seen a lot from him in the past. In his younger years, he'd throw those elbows down from top position. He wasn't getting those opportunities. Now, whether that's down to Condit's jiu-jitsu capabilities or whether it was the age and Brown looking after that fuel tank that I mentioned, but certainly going into the second round, Condit started really putting his combinations together and striking really dangerously with hands and legs. And it looked like it took something out of Brown. And you see Brown almost doubt himself momentarily. And of course, Condit ended up getting on top in those other rounds when they was going onto the ground. And Condit, although physically not as strong when they're both fresh, started to look the stronger of the two because of the issues, I think, of cardio. I just think Brown is just started to fall over the cliff physically now, and it's such a shame because he's clearly a clean athlete in terms of his living, because to be able to do what he does do at 40 years old is still to be commended. But I really think his career's done, sadly. But I think more sad would be see someone go beyond their years. I just don't want to see that. He's done fantastic things for the sport. I sometimes think that he never fulfilled the capabilities of what I think he was capable of doing. It just didn't quite happen for him, but nevertheless, it won't tarnish my thoughts of him and my love for him as the athlete he's been over the years. I've really enjoyed watching him, and he's done some great performances, but I just hope he don't carry on too long. But again, it's such a shame this fight didn't happen, say, 4 years ago. It was such a shame. I think that would have been an even more amazing fight, and maybe a fight that would have gone Matt Brown's way if it happened a few years back. But nevertheless, it did happen. It didn't disappoint. It was a great performance from both, but even more so for Condit as he got the win.
Yeah, I think Danny, as you're saying, with you don't want to see guys going too long in their career. I think that's definitely the case for Matt Brown, but also for Carlos Condit. He just got that big. He just got this big win. He is at the end. I think that was the end of his current UFC contract. He's a free agent now, and he's done. Obviously, he's been the interim champ. He's fought everyone in the sport. He's had a huge career. He still, I don't think he possesses the skill set now to fight the top guys in the welterweight division, really.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to see him continue to try and do so. I'd like to see these types of fights again. The older fighters, maybe. I'm not sure if they're evenly matched, really, but Diego Sanchez and Carlos Condit or something like that, would be a good fight for Condit. I wouldn't want to see him fight the elite guys anymore for that same reason.
You know what, Jack, I can't agree with you more. In my mind, Condit still looks the same fighter he was a number of years ago. He hasn't really evolved the skill set, but he was clearly of the highest order a number of years ago. And it's still relevant today. If you make mistakes, he'll capitalize. Don't get me wrong, but I think MMA has moved on another level, and I just think he was sort of like Mark III, and now we're seeing Mark IV style fighters. I do think exactly the same thing. Not to say his career's done. I think he's still got something left in his career, but I think it'd be better suited to say Bellator's or something along those lines if he really feels that it's within him to keep fighting. But I just, to me, he's never going to be champion in UFC again. And I just think, what's the point of being UFC unless you've really got a chance of moving on up and having a punt at the title? He's done amazing things, had an amazing career. I just want people to protect their legacies, with a dignifying end, and not to do what I think Anderson Silva done. I think it was shameful to see what Anderson Silva done. I just think it was it just was not needed. Not needed. I mean, he really did do some special things, but I think it was such a shame to see the kind of fizzling performances that we saw of him of late. And you can partly blame Dana White for allowing this to go on. Really, he just shouldn't have let that happen. It was not doing anything for the sport. Yeah, yeah. And I think Dana White spoke to Donald Cerrone. I mean, another guy that's incredible and absolutely legit for anyone. If you make a mistake, he's going to capitalise. He's proved that time and time again. But he really has stuck some mileage on his clock. And for the love of the people that they are, you just want to know that they're going to be able to at least enjoy retirement with no long-going health issues. I mean, look at Jack Mason, with the list of injuries that he listed off. You worry for them as people. The fight game is for a set period of time in your life, and I think as much as you can do wonderful things in your career technically and performance-wise, I think you can all equally do as wonders with your career by knowing when to stop at the right time.
Completely agree.
100%. The fact is, like, if Carlos Condit decides that he wants to stay in the UFC and he re-signs another contract, as a fighter, he's going to want to take on the top fighters because he will obviously, by signing that contract, still believe that he can do it. And I think we all agree that when he comes to fight the younger, the fitter, the very top athletes in that division, he's going to struggle. But it's natural that if he's got fights on his contract, he's going to want to fight those guys. That's like a natural fighter's instinct, isn't it? So, yeah, it'd be nice to see him retire on a high, but Bellator will probably sign him next, let's be honest. Okay, and then we had the main event, which was not close. I can't remember seeing a card. I was trying to rack my brains, and my memory's not the best. I was trying to rack my brains to remember a card which ended 50-43, 50-43, 50-42, like with that big a gap. It was absolutely sensational. One of the best individual performances I've ever seen in MMA or boxing. It was sensational. I haven't got enough words in my vocabulary to describe just how good it was. All I could say to people who are watching or listening is, if you're a fight fan and you haven't seen this fight, go and watch it, because what Max Holloway did last night was just truly special. It was a special individual sporting performance, and I think whatever sport you're into, these are the type of performances which we all love to see, from whether it's a team or an individual, whatever it may be. Danny, how special was this from Max Holloway?
Yeah, super special when you think how good Qatar is. I mean, over the last few weeks I was saying, yeah, absolutely. I just felt that striking-wise, Qatar was the more powerful hitter. I think he was someone who's going to take the centre of the cage and dominate, just dominate the exchanges, because he had the weight and power. But Holloway completely proved me wrong. Now, whether this is because Holloway's made incrementally improvements to his game, or stylistically just suited well. You got to remember, he's given away 3 inches in reach, and they were matched each other in height at 5'11". But the fact that he was throwing so loose probably took up the extra deficit of 3 inches. And whereas Qatar, although he punches quite deep with his punches, is a little bit more muscularly set on the shoulders. But the fact that Holloway was punching loose to make up for that extra little bit of reach deficit that he was giving away was making him land first and land longer. It was just beautiful. It was the work rate. The work rate was incredible. And do you see those body shots? I mean, Jack Mason, appreciate how difficult it is to pull off some sexy body shots. He was pulling them off sometimes 2 and 3 times in a combination. I mean, it's absolutely well. I do actually think, though, I think it was in round 3 that Max Holloway completely opened up on Qatar, and Qatar was completely wobbled on his feet. I do think that should have been stopped at that point. I think the referee should have stepped in. Now, I know Qatar was still defending intelligently, which may have, saved his, self from having that fight stop. But all it did do is make Holloway break more records with the amount that he threw and landed. It was absolutely shocking. I just didn't think he was capable of doing it. So more than anything else, just to think about it, he'd done it up against someone who's a true top tier, world class striker. He's really, really good striker, Qatar. He's pure bread and butter. But Holloway never once considered to clinch up and have to take it to the ground to change the result of the fight. He just had it on the feet from the get go. Just what else can you say about it really? But just to point out the thing other than the work rate and obviously the clear, amazing performance was how beautiful those body shots was. And you're seeing this more and more in UFC. Clearly, these guys are latching on to some incredible strike coaches, and everyone's picking out the weakness in the body now, just like we saw with the shin kicks that got brought into fashion a couple of years ago. People are now defending that a little bit better these days. But what you are seeing now is people crunching these body shots to the liver. They're beautiful and not easy to pull off. It's something that I've always wanted to be able to do in training and in my fight career, but I never really attained that level of boxing skill to be able to put them off on someone else that's world class. Really impressive. What more can I say?
It's not the first time he's done it as well, because it took me back to what he did to Brian Ortega. And he broke a load of records with the amount of strikes that he hit, and it was just...
He reminded me of Nate Diaz versus Cowboy. Do you remember that? When he completely just outboxed him. I think he may have broke records at the time. But that's the kind of thing it reminded me of. Obviously, Cowboy's no slouch as a striker himself, but he got totally showing up with the boxing. And likewise for Qatar this time around, got really showing up.
I think Max Holloway... I was going to say Max Holloway was you could see at the end of I think it was the 5th round when he shouted out to the commentary team, I'm the best boxer in the division.
Yeah.
All of the build up to the fight, they were talking about Qatar's boxing, and obviously I think Max had taken that to heart and wanted to go out and prove a point, and he did, didn't he? I really loved his strategy, the way he picked Qatar apart. He was using that oblique kick because Qatar's. I feel like Qatar's most dangerous when he's coming forward, and he's got a lovely 1-2. When you're on the end of that 1-2, that lovely long 1-2, it's an excellent combination for him, and Max just took that away from him. Stopping him marching forward by using those oblique kicks, and they kept him on the back foot all the time with the body shots and the really high volume, and just gave Qatar no chance. And I was a bit, whilst the Max's game plan was exactly what was required to beat Qatar, and his execution was perfect. I was a bit puzzled as to why Qatar didn't try and change something, because he didn't. He just tried to do the same thing. His corner team were just saying more right hands, and he really needed to change his strategy because it just wasn't working, was it?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, he didn't switch up between any of the rounds, and you would think once you're falling 3 rounds behind, you have to change something up to try to take back the fight, but he didn't. He just fell into a pattern, and the cornermen were going with that pattern that was clearly losing each time. Another mistake that I noticed Qatar was making was that sometimes he was blocking and shelling up with both hands, and there were other times he was blocking with his lead but extending his rear arm. He started trying to push away the shots, which is like almost a habit of beginners, when people try to push the strikes away, and that just opened him up to more combinations with the left hook and so on and so forth. But yeah, switching up, I just wonder whether he's actually got the capabilities to switch it up. We see a couple of clinches for him, but no real valid technical attempts to take it to the ground or to smother him against the fence. Maybe I would suggest that Qatar is physically slightly stronger than Holloway physically with the upper body, and maybe he could have done something in the clinch, maybe pin him up against the fence and take away some of that rhythm, maybe to change the pace and put some blood into those arms. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, he's got things to learn from there.
I was going to ask the both of you actually, like what could he have done to just change the momentum of the fight, because it was just going one way. It was brutal. He was taking damage. His nose was broken. You mentioned, Danny, that you thought the fight should have been stopped at a certain point. I think it was the fourth.
Yeah, he was wobbled on the feet.
Especially because of the amount of damage he had taken, on top of the fact that he had been wobbled. but I do get like why it wasn't stopped also.
Yeah.
It's an
But
interesting one, but
absolutely. But
obviously,
what a character Holloway is, though. I mean, he's making a habit, isn't he, of talking to the commentators. I did this in his other fight. I think he's hearing what they're saying, because although there was a crowd there was not crowd enough clearly for him not to hear what they were saying. And but that just goes to show how relaxed he was in there, because Jack will definitely know about this. Sometimes you almost go deaf when you're under pressure and your adrenaline's rushing, sort of like you're so absorbed into what's happening and just reacting. But it goes to show you how relaxed he was. He was able to hear and confer with the commentators. I mean, it's to behold. It really, really was.
When he was speaking to the commentators and he was looking at the commentators, and then Qatar walked forward and he hit him with the backhand. It was just unreal.
Yeah, it's craziness. But this is becoming a habit of his, but one that brings a little smile to my face. So it's cheeky.
Yeah, 100%. He's got to be back in there for a title fight after that, surely.
Yeah. Actually, Jack, what I was going to ask you, do you see that second fight with him? I mean, you're bound to have. Do you remember the fight where he fought Volkanovski for the second time? Did you? I felt that Holloway did enough to win that.
Yeah, I thought he did as well.
I think he was a little bit robbed. So, some people, when I talk to people in the club, say, he's not, maybe lost his rhythm a little bit. I'm like, hey, you know what? Not actually so. I don't think so. I thought he won his fight with Volkanovski last time out, but, decision went against him. I think he was a little surprised it went against him as well, from what I remember of his comments after the fight. But yeah, performing like that and how he did previously, I think he can take this title back. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And with his fan base and the people that I think momentum behind him now, I think they've got to give him that title shot again.
Yeah, agreed.
No question at all. So that wraps us up for the UFC for last night. I really enjoyed having the UFC back. I've missed it over the last couple of weeks, and what a card! It was so entertaining to watch, so entertaining. Lots of finishes and stuff, some great fights, and we finally got Carlos Condit.
Yeah. Just before we finish up, did anyone see that Tafa and Felipe? Did anyone see that fight? Oh man, I had to watch that one because I know they're both, not your typical stereotype physical-looking fighters. They're they're soft-bodied characters, but my God, they've got power and they love to trade shots. That was a brilliant fight. I actually felt that Tafa won it. I thought he won that first round, lost the second round, but I thought he'd done enough with the takedown attempt and pushing Felipe up against the fence. I thought that he did enough to nip it, but it went against him, unfortunately. But what a great fight that was.
Yeah, I tweeted about that. I was really impressed with that fight, and Justin Tafa looks, obviously he's a mentor with Mark Hunt as well, but he looks like him as well, doesn't he?
He absolutely does.
Yeah. Just looks like a young version of him, and fights like him as well. And that was an unbelievable fight, and the sound of those shots landing.
Those boys had power, proper power, and I love watching both of them fight. That's one I'd like to watch a second time round if it ever happens, which inevitably it will do, I think, at some point. But they're great fighters. Great fighters.
Oh yes. Very quickly, just to finish us off, let's do our predictions for Wednesday for some of the fights. We won't go through all of them. I'll just pick a couple out. So we got the UFC Fight Night. So we'll go with Mike Davis versus Mason Jones. Danny, who's going to win?
Oh, Mason Jones.
Yeah, I think so. What about you, Jack?
Mason.
The Mason as well. Yeah, I think that was a bit predictable from all of us. The main event of Wednesdays is a real interesting one. You've got what is it? I've forgotten his name. Neil Magny versus Michael Chiesa. Who's going to win that one, Danny? Because that is a very...
I'm going to go Magny on this one, but this is now so tricky. But I'm going to go Neil Magny.
Okay, and Jack?
Yeah, Magny. I was really impressed with his last performance.
Yeah, likewise.
I was going to say that. He was, his last fight, he was exceptional. I thought he was very good. Let's have a look at the other fights. Is there anyone else I would like to see? I would like to know who you think is going to win out of Matt Schnell and Tyson Nam. Danny?
Schnell, probably.
What about you, Jack?
I don't know who either of those two are. Sorry.
No,
No, I don't think it's. I don't know. I can't see him quite doing this one.
I like Tyson Nam. I like watching him fight, but Nam's ranked 13, Schnell's ranked 9, but I really enjoy watching both of them fight, and I'm looking forward to that one. It looks like it's going to
it'd be good.
Open the card as well, so that'll be a nice way to open the card Wednesday. And then, of course, next week we have Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. To finish us off, in one word, who is going to win between McGregor and Poirier, Jack?
McGregor.
Any pick?
KO.
KO, yeah?
KO.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to say KO, and I think it's going to happen in the second round.
I'm going for a quick 60 seconds.
Ooh.
Left hand.
It wouldn't surprise me, man. Wouldn't surprise me.
I just think Conor McGregor looks so focused at the moment. Just everything I've seen of him, the Cerrone fight as well. He looks. Look, remember when he was coming up through the UFC, where it was just his focus and his belief in what he was doing. He was just like leaving bodies behind him almost, wasn't he? And I feel like he's got that same mentality at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll see if he's a bit older. Poirier's a lot better fighter than he was the first time round. So it'll be very interesting to see how they get along. Okay, guys. We might have a live show on Wednesday straight after the UFC card. So if you check out the Facebook page or the Twitter page of the A.C.E Podcast Nation or the Danny Batten Fight Show, we'll let you know about that. But we'll be definitely back next week talking the Conor McGregor and Poirier fight, among others, when we'll be joined by Cage Warriors flyweight champion Jake Hadley. Because I got the weeks mixed up, and I think last week I said that Jake was on this week, but he wasn't. It was Jack and then Jake. But that's my memory for you. But yeah, Jake Hadley next week. Jack the Stone Mason, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jack. I've seen you obviously a lot over the years at fight shows, and we always been under pressure either with me having fighters on, you having fighters on, or you fighting yourself. But it's been a long time coming to be able to chat with you, and it's been an utter pleasure. I hope if you get the chance to come on again later in the year, it'd be great to have you on again. It was really nice listening to your analysing and breakdown of the fights.
Thanks a lot, Danny. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Jack.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Guys, subscribe, youtube.com/A.C.E Podcast Nation. You can follow the show at Danny Batten FS on Twitter and Instagram, or you can follow A.C.E Podcast Nation on all social media. We've got lots of other shows, audio and video versions with top guests, expert analysts, and more. So check us out, come say hello, send questions, whatever you like. But we'll be back next week, and until then, we bid you farewell.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten! You win.
You're listening to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation.